This is video lecture 4-1, Introduction to Ecology. We often hear about career paths for students interested in the medical sciences, but there are also lots of careers out there for students that love biology, but are more interested in the ecology and evolution side. In this video lecture, I will briefly introduce you to these types of career options. We will also discuss what we mean by ecology, and define some of the disciplines within ecology. Finally, we will finish up with a discussion of some of the factors that determine where in the ecosystem or biosphere a particular species is found as a way of introducing this unit as a whole. Again, the focus on careers in biology often revolves around the allied health sciences, but there are lots of opportunities for students with interests outside of health and medicine. There are opportunities in research and education in ecology and evolution, but also in management and policy, or science writing and consulting. These can be pursued both in private charities such as the World Wildlife Fund or Nature Conservancy, or also in government agencies. There are private companies interested in hiring students well educated in ecological concepts. As with the evolution unit, if this material captures your interest, it would be great to engage in some research here on campus. Ecology is the study of interactions. Interactions both among different individuals of the same species, organisms of different species, and interactions among organisms and their physical environment. These interactions determine the distribution and abundance of organisms. Ecology can be studied at a number of levels that are nested within each other in a hierarchy. The lowest level is organismal ecology, and each level increases in complexity, ending with global ecology. Organismal ecology is concerned with how an individual organism meets the challenges posed by its environment. In other words, what adaptations enable individuals to survive in their habitats. So we might ask questions such as, at what temperatures can polar bears survive? How do they survive in such cold environments? How do they manage the change in temperature across seasons in such a harsh habitat? Population ecology examines the factors that determine how populations, groups of individuals of the same species living in the same area, have adapted to that habitat. The questions we would ask in population ecology would be, what determines population size? How many polar bears can live in a particular area? Is a population increasing, decreasing, or stable in size? And what is it about the environment that might influence any change in population size? Community ecology studies interactions among species. For example, polar bears hunt seals. How does the population size of polar bears affect the population dynamics of the seals that they depend on? And vice versa. What might a drop in prey population have on a population size of polar bears? Will they switch to a new prey species, or will they starve? These different species of organisms do not exist in a vacuum. They depend on the environment around them, including physical factors such as sunlight that allows primary producers to input energy into the ecosystem. In ecosystems ecology, we emphasize energy flow. How do nutrients move through the tundra? What controls photosynthetic productivity in this environment? We're not going to talk much about landscape ecology, but it is important to recognize that ecosystems also are not found in isolation. They are interconnected. So mountain ranges connect through valleys and rivers. Each might be an ecosystem, but what happens in one ecosystem often determines the health of other ecosystems. Finally, all ecosystems and landscapes are part of the planet. What happens in one part of the globe can have a profound impact around the planet. Think about ash that enters the atmosphere from a volcano in Southeast Asia. It will affect weather patterns all the way across the globe, including Europe. We are going to discuss global ecology by talking about how warming temperatures affect distributions of organisms across the planet. We will work our way through population ecology, community ecology, and then discuss global climate change. But it is really impossible to disentangle all of these levels of study. We are going to start this unit by simply talking about what determines where organisms live. The factors that determine where a species might live can include a simple question such as, can it get there? Or is the inability of a species to move from one place to the next keep it in its current habitat? Biotic factors, which are factors caused by other living organisms, can also determine where a species can live. We will talk much more about these sorts of factors in the community ecology materials. Abiotic factors, physical parameters, may also limit where a species is able to live. We've already talked about polar bears. They overheat at temperatures above 50 Fahrenheit, so they aren't able to live in warmer climates. But other physical factors can also be important. And organisms differ in their behavior. They may choose one habitat over another. Let's talk about dispersal limitations. Here are some examples. Islands are a natural way to think of dispersal limitations. We've been talking a lot about the organisms found on the Galapagos. It's the only place where the giant tortoises and marine iguanas are found. These species evolved there, and because the islands are isolated, they cannot make it to other areas. They are unable to naturally disperse to other parts of the world. Tortoises are terrestrial, and marine iguanas are good swimmers, but not able to swim such long distances. Sometimes dispersal is unnatural. Burmese pythons demonstrate how dispersal can limit distribution. Originally, they were only found in Southeast Asia, but some were transported into South Florida as a part of the pet trade and then released. The current population size estimate is between 30,000 and 100,000 pythons in South Florida, so this is clearly a suitable habitat and the population is thriving. But under natural conditions, they weren't able to exploit this habitat because there was no way for them to get from Southeast Asia to Florida. They're actually a real problem in Florida. Mammal declines in Everglades National Park have been attributed to the python population. Biotic factors can also limit distribution of species. One example on how feeding by limpets and sea urchin affect the distribution of seaweed is covered in your textbook. You should be sure to go over this figure in the textbook and make sure you understand the results of the study. If you have questions, bring them to class. Abiotic factors also determine where a species can live. These include a whole range of factors and can vary in both time and space. Every species has a range of environmental tolerances that determine its geographic distribution. This is very apparent in the southern Appalachian Mountains. In the southern Appalachians, the south and western sides of the mountain receive more sun during the warmest hours of the day than the northern and eastern sides of the mountains. This is a difference in sunlight that causes distinct differences in temperature, which also affects soil moisture and humidity. The result is an entirely different set of plants on one side of the mountain than on the other. On Mount LeConte, the trail on the southwestern side is super dry with sparser tree cover, pines and blueberries and oaks. You can expect to see rattlesnakes just sunning themselves on the trail. These species can tolerate the dry conditions there. On the northern side is a trail that resembles this picture on the right. Lush ground cover filled with a variety of herbs, maples, ash, tulip poplars, species that do better in cooler, moisture conditions. Environmental temperature is an important factor in distribution of organisms because of its effect on biological processes. Cells may freeze and rupture below freezing, while most proteins denature above 45 degrees Celsius. Temperature and precipitation can vary based on numerous factors including latitude and elevation, and also on ocean currents. When I first moved to Britain, I was shocked by how far north it is. Manchester, England, where I lived, is as far north as Newfoundland and Hudson Bay, but it has a relatively temperate climate because of the jet stream. We can recognize some common features of habitats based on conditions such as temperature and rainfall. Deserts are defined by having high mean temperatures but low precipitation, while tropical rainforests are warm and wet. Each biome is characterized by a particular climate.